Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our final video for Game Week 26, a final decisions video where we're going to be talking about all of the press conferences and injury news around the Premier League clubs, as well as touching on some wildcard strategies, some free hit strategies for Game Week 26, as well as other chip stuff in general. So guys, make sure you drop a like if you enjoy this one, subscribe if you want to see this content every single week. Let's get started. So first of all, a look around the press conferences this game week, and we have had an Arsenal press conference, particularly around the Champions League games, where we did get the news that Partey, Jesus and Zinchenko are all close to returning to first team action. So if you are looking at Kivior at the moment, maybe you've got a Zinchenko in your team already, there is a chance you might get a Zinchenko start this game week, but it's not certain, it's not confirmed. Now, Tomiyasu is still going to be out this game week. His injury is a little bit more significant, but we did see a return to action for Vieira. Vieira is back, sounds a bit more dramatic than it actually is. It's not Patrick Vieira coming back to Arsenal, but of course Fabio Vieira returning to the Champions League team just a couple of days ago. For Aston Villa, Kamara, he's confirmed out for the season now, unfortunately, and Concert, Diego Carlos and Duran are still all going to be out for this game week. For Bournemouth, Aarons, Adams, Fredericks still out, but Favre is back following an illness last game week, and Billing is going to serve the final game of his suspension for Bournemouth. For Brentford, Pinnock, he is going to be out for at least a month. We're looking at game week 30 before we can expect Pinnock to be back. And Mbermo, interestingly, he's progressing pretty well. He could be back for game week 30, but unfortunately not back quite in time for that game week 29 blank game week. So any plans to bring in Mbermo anytime soon? Probably not a great idea, but at least his return is finally on the horizon. For Brighton, Mitoma is actually going to be a doubt this game week with a back injury, so not sure if he is actually going to be available to start this game week. João Pedro, he's still a few weeks away from returning as well. He is back doing some training in the gym, but yeah, he is going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks is the timescale at the moment. And Ciso, however, is now available, so interesting stuff there. For Burnley, Aaron Ramsey, unfortunately, he's going to be out for the season. Tressor will hopefully be available, but Bayer, Foster, Koleosho, Redmond, they are still going to be out kind of a little bit more long term. Now Chelsea, they don't have a fixture, but we did have a press conference ahead of the League Cup final. Thiago Silva is back in training, so he could feature, and Cucurella is back in partial training. I know that's not going to impact too much of our FPL decisions, but maybe it's worth noting when we're thinking about future game weeks. For Crystal Palace, Eze not expected back until game week 27, but that is at least on the horizon. You know, he's going to be coming back soon, but game week 26, it's not looking good for Eze. Gehi, Elise and Decore remain out, and Hughes is also going to be unavailable this week as well. So Crystal Palace really lacking a lot of their key players this game week. So if you are a Charlie Taylor owner, for example, who, by the way, you know, we saw him back on the bench last game week for Burnley. If you're a Charlie Taylor owner, you're hoping he's going to start this game week. Well, hey, I mean, Crystal Palace, they are lacking a few key players at the moment. So maybe you could get a clean sheet from Taylor. I don't know. Just putting that one out there. For Everton, Mikalenko is hopeful to start after a knock, but that is not guaranteed. And Coleman is available following illness. Danjuma, Dele and Gomez still long-term absentees. They're not going to be available this game week again. For Fulham, Broja available following illness last game week. And Willian has a chance of playing this game week as well. Palhinha, on the other hand, suspended due to 10 yellow cards. Yes, 10 yellow cards already for Palhinha. That's pretty much a yellow card every other game from him. Crazy stuff. But, you know, Fulham playing against Manchester United this game week, maybe that's going to be a big advantage there for United to try and score more goals against Fulham with their key defensive midfielder missing out this game week. Now for Liverpool, they don't have a fixture, but again, we did get some news. Salah and Darwin, they're going to be assessed before the EFL Cup final. They do actually have a chance of playing in that game. However, Alisson, Jota and Trent have been ruled out until game week 30. So if you are thinking about removing some Liverpool players right now, Alisson, Jota, Trent are definitely players you want to be looking at moving on, because not only do they not have a game week this game week, but they're going to be out all the way until after the game week 29, likely blank for Liverpool. So yeah, long term, really, well, I guess medium term, I guess, in football terms, but yeah, in FPL terms, these are players that we want to be removing for sure. For Luton, no fixture and no press conference either, because they don't have any games this weekend, not even a cup game to play. For Man City, we've got an interesting one here. De Bruyne, he is going to be assessed, but will likely travel for Manchester City this game week. Of course, he was rested against Bournemouth in the midweek due to some complaints about some muscle tightness. There's no new injury there. There's nothing really significant there. And Pep Guardiola seems reasonably optimistic, but at the same time, there is no guarantees this week that De Bruyne is going to be playing, which I know is going to come as a disappointment for many De Bruyne owners, myself included, as he's one of the few players we actually have playing this game week with all of these blanks. So a little bit of a change of plan there maybe for some of you guys. I don't think De Bruyne is necessarily a sell this game week. I think maybe you roll the dice this week rather than taking a -4, but definitely a player we do need to keep an eye on at the moment. He is in trainings today, and he is going to have that late assessment later on today, and by Sunday, maybe he is going to be able to feature. Or Sunday? Is it Sunday that Man City play? No, Saturday. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be a tricky one. Saturday fixture for Man City. They play the 5:30 kickoff, don't they? So maybe we get some early team news in the deadline stream tomorrow. Maybe we don't, but we will obviously keep you up to date with everything on the stream tomorrow. Guardiola and Grealish, they are still out, however. For Manchester United, this is the big news coming in today. Højlund is going to be out for the next few weeks with a new muscle injury that he's picked up in training. So Højlund actually the most popular transfer in FPL this game week. Over 400,000 FPL managers have transferred this guy in, and he is injured. I guess this is another one of those situations where early transfers perhaps being punished. So yeah, difficult one there for Højlund owners. I don't really know what you do from this situation. It's probably likely that you're going to have to take a hit in order to remove him. But at least you've got players like Watkins, Solanke, Tony, all good forwards that you can replace Højlund with if you need to. Shaw is going to be out for a few months, a definite sell there, and there's no other injury returnees for Manchester United this game week. For Newcastle, Fabian Schär is available after a wrist injury that he sustained last week, but he is going to be available again. And Isak and Willock have returned to full training this week, and given that they were apparently very close to starting in game week 25, you would expect that they will be available for this game against Arsenal. Huge game, obviously, for Newcastle. Very, very difficult game. They are going to need their best players, but I would cautiously say that Isak and Willock will be at least in the squad for this game against Arsenal for Newcastle. There's no other injury returnees for Newcastle, though, with a few other players unavailable. For Nottingham Forest, Aina, Bolly, and Sangare have returned to AFCON, obviously, last week, but they've all returned with injury issues, so they're going to all be unavailable this game week. So no return for the AFCON boys at Nottingham Forest. Montiel, he has trained this week, however, so could be available. But interestingly, Awoniyi hasn't been spotted in training this week. I know a few people have got their eyes on Awoniyi at the moment ahead of the fixture that they have in game week 29 against Luton. Maybe that's quite likely for that game week to go ahead, and Awoniyi not being spotted in training is maybe going to impact some Awoniyi related plans. I guess we'll keep an eye on that one, but yeah, definitely not a player to buy this game week anymore. For Sheffield United, Lau and Norrington Davies unavailable this weekend. They're not going to play. Archer had a muscle tightness apparently last game week, which ruled him out. This week, is he going to be back and available? Possibly. I don't think there's particularly positive news there on Brereton Diaz either. Sheffield United actually keeping their cards very close to their chest this game week, so difficult to get injury news. And there's been no update on Bulldog either. So if you're hyping Bulldog, is going to be available this game week. If you have him in your squad, again, could be pretty difficult. For Spurs, no fixture, no press conference. They haven't got a game this weekend. For West Ham, Paqueta back in training and could actually feature, but Phillips is suspended for game week 26. Of course, a reminder here as well that Antonio returned to the team last game week as well, so we're going to see more Antonio centrally, maybe Bowen kind of playing off him on the right hand side there. So yeah, Antonio is back and yeah, playing again for West Ham. For Wolves, Cunha is still out. We haven't got any timescale on that one, but no other injury concerns. So those of you guys looking at Hwang and Neto, looks good to go. Nori as well, good to go on those transfers if you want to bring in some Wolves players ahead of their game against Sheffield United. So I think a big question this game week is Jota replacements. Who should we be selling Jota for? Because he's the big transfer out this game week. We all know that. And I think it depends if you are planning on using chips to navigate 29 or not. If you are free hitting or planning on free hitting in game week 29, or if you're planning on a wild card before game week 30, so game week 29, 28, 27, maybe even 26, then these are your kind of Jota replacements that you'd be looking to go for. So first of all, the Wolves guys, Hee-Chan and Neto. Both of these guys playing against Sheffield United this week and Newcastle the week after that. So some really nice fixtures for Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I think certainly Hee-Chan is looking like the preferred pick among all of the top FPL managers at the moment. And that's largely due to the fact that Hee-Chan plays as a central striker and is also likely to be on penalties for Wolves. Neto, brilliant, fun player to watch, of course, a fantastic football player. But in FPL terms, Hee-Chan just looks a little bit more tantalising there at a slightly cheaper price tag as well. Erdegaard, you could go for with a double up on the attack for Arsenal. I'm assuming you guys already have Saka. I mean, I should probably say here, if you don't have Saka, he is your Jotaro replacement straight up. But if you already have Saka, Ødegaard, definitely another player to look out for at the moment. 8.4 million. His underlying numbers are up at the moment, which is good, and he is getting more involved in the Arsenal attacking play. Like I say, Arsenal against a weak Newcastle defence this week, and Burnley the following week as well. Is it Burnley or someone pretty easy? I can't remember who Arsenal played. Did they play Burnley last game week? Is it Sheffield United next week? I'm getting very confused with all the fixtures, but yeah, all I remember is Arsenal have a good fixture next game week. Pascal Gross, he is obviously another player with pretty decent numbers at the moment on those set pieces, on penalties, with João Pedro being absent as well. So he could be a really nice differential to go for as well. But again, these players are all super unlikely to feature in Game Week 29. So you'd only really be looking to bring in these players if you are not planning on, trying to, just build a team between now and Game Week 29 without the use of chips. If you are not using chips and you want to, maybe you want a wild card in Game Week 30 or something like that, if you're not free hitting in Game Week 29 and you're not wildcarding before Game Week 30, then we are basically looking at buying some players in the claret and blue. So, Aston Villa players, Douglas Luiz and Bailey. Douglas Luiz probably better for those set pieces and penalties, but not really too much in open play, playing in the defensive midfield role. Bailey, far more attacking in open play, but lacks any other real routes to points. So, Douglas Luiz probably the safer choice out of the two, but Bailey, with his minutes risk, could be a slightly risky one, but he has got FPL returns recently, and his underlying numbers aren't great, but they're okay. Bowen obviously has been a great FPL asset throughout the rest of the season. West Ham dipping in form recently, but I think we still have to consider him as one of the top FPL assets in the Premier League until we see something different for a long while. But maybe a little bit speculative that Bowen will regain his form this game week against Brentford. We've got James Ward-Prowse here as well. We wanted to throw his name in the hat because his underlying numbers are actually better than Bowen's at the moment. He's actually looking pretty good. Those set pieces really help James Ward-Prowse as well. He's been playing in a pretty advanced role, getting forward, creating a lot for his teammates and taking the odd shot from range as well. So James Ward-Prowse, yeah, actually better numbers than Bowen at the moment. So you could consider going there if you wanted to go a little bit cheaper. But as you can see, guys, a big part of your chip strategy is going to be a case of who you are buying right now. And you can tell immediately that the players on the top row are probably a much more appealing than the players on the bottom row. So if you are planning on running through Game Week 29 without the use of any chips, just be aware you are going to have to pick some, I guess, suboptimal players. If you are free hitting in 29 or wildcarding beforehand, then you can go for some more, some better players, basically. So yeah, that's going to be all dependent on what your plan is with your chips, really. So, I mentioned Game Week 29 briefly there. I wanted to remind you guys how this works, because between now and the Game Week 27 deadline, we are going to get more key information. And actually, we're going to get the results from these games, which will define who plays in Game Week 29 and who does not. So, first of all, we've got 3 guaranteed fixtures in Game Week 29 at the moment. Aston Villa versus West Ham, Burnley versus Brentford, and Fulham versus Spurs. So, these are the kind of players you want to be picking up right now if you're not going to be using chips in Game Week 29, with maybe the exception of Spurs, since they blank this game week, which is really tough, isn't it? Because I'm sure a lot of you guys, for your Jotaro replacement, you probably want a Heung-min Son or a James Maddison or a Richarlison, maybe, if you haven't got him already. So yeah, it's a difficult one there. We've got many at-risk fixtures. Like, all of the other games could technically take place individually, but it's not looking likely. So, for example, Arsenal versus Chelsea, that is going to blank if Chelsea beat Leeds in the FA Cup. You would imagine Chelsea are favourites. Brighton versus Man City, that's going to blank if Man City beat Luton or if Brighton beat Wolves in the FA Cup. So that's super unlikely to, go ahead. The fixture in Game Week 29, super unlikely to go ahead, because at least one of those things is going to happen, you would have thought. Crystal Palace versus Newcastle, that's going to blank if Newcastle beat Blackburn in the FA Cup. Again, very likely. Everton versus Liverpool blanks if Liverpool beat Southampton in the FA Cup. Again, you expect Liverpool to beat Southampton next week in the FA Cup. Luton versus Nottingham Forest blanks if Luton beat Man City or if Nottingham Forest beat Manchester United in the FA Cup. Now, this one is a little bit more up in the air. Man City, you expect to beat Luton, so that one rules that one out. But Nottingham Forest, if they can manage to somehow beat Manchester United in the FA Cup, and without Højlund, maybe that impacts things a little bit, well, interestingly, the Luton Town versus Nottingham Forest game could blank after all, which leads us to the next one. Manchester United versus Sheffield United. If Nottingham Forest beat Manchester United in the FA Cup next week, and that wouldn't be too much of a shock. It would be a unexpected result, but it wouldn't be too much of a shock. We will not get the Luton Town versus Nottingham Forest game in Game Week 29 anymore. We would, in fact, get the Manchester United versus Sheffield United game in Game Week 29, which is arguably going to be the best fixture in Game Week 29, with Manchester United, some decent attackers in the team, Garnacho, Fernandes, Rashford, maybe Dalot in defence. You know, these are the kind of players you'd be really looking at targeting for Game Week 29. Unfortunately, we won't get answers to these questions until after the Game Week 26 deadline. And finally, Wolves versus Bournemouth. That is going to blank if Wolves beat Brighton or if Bournemouth beat Leicester in the FA Cup. So we could see some surprises there. You never know. If Brighton beat Wolves and Leicester beat Bournemouth, then suddenly this fixture goes straight back into Game Week 29 and we don't need to worry about it anymore. So shout out to Planet FPL for this table here, but yeah, this is where we are at the moment in terms of projected fixtures. By the time we talk about projected fixtures for Game Week 27, this is going to look a lot different. But just to give you a rough idea of what we would expect if every single thing goes to, you know, exactly how things are predicted, I guess. If the bookies' favourites win every single game, pretty much, and there's no, you know, really difficult cup clashes or anything like that, this is what the rest of the season will look like. We know that's not going to be the case. We know this is not going to be, you know, actually factually accurate because things change so much in football. Shock results happen every single week, and this will all go to pot very, very shortly. But if you want a rough guide, if you are forced to make chip-related, you know, planning-related transfers right now, this is probably the rough guide you should go off. So use this as a guide as what you would expect to happen until we get more information if you have to make planning moves right now. Which takes us to chip strategies. I think there's 3 options left. If you've got all of your non-triple captain chips remaining, these are the 3 options I would be going for. So option 1, you would be looking to wildcard between now and Game Week 28. Preferably, you'd wait until Game Week 27 to wildcard because we'll have so much more information by 27. Free hit in 34 and bench boost in 37. I think this is going to be a good strategy if you really don't like the look of your team at the moment. If you think your team has a lot of problems and you actually feel like you need to wildcard now, option 1 is the one to go for. You can still have a very successful season with this strategy. Option 2, which is getting more and more appealing by the minute as the appeal of West Ham and Aston Villa and Luton players starts to go down. Free hitting in Game Week 29 is looking better and better. Wildcard in 35, and then you'd look to bench boost in 37. And option 3, the toughest strategy to do. Most of us are not going to be able to do this, but if you've already got a Richarlison, maybe Pedro Porro, you've already got a Watkins, maybe you've got one Aston Villa player in defence, like a Pau Torres maybe you've got Douglas Luiz in your team, maybe you've got a Lucen player or 2 in your team, then actually option 3 might work for you because you've already got quite a few players that are, you know, going to play in Game Week 29. You know, if you've got Tony as well, Reguilon maybe, you know, these kind of players. If you've got these kind of players, option 3 might work for you. It's not going to work for everyone. If you don't have many players that are guaranteed or likely to have fixtures in 29 so far, then option 3 is just simply not going to work for you. But if you can do it, wildcard in 30 or 31, free hit in 34, and Game Week 37 bench boost. So yeah, key takeaway here, guys, is Game Week 37 is the bench boost week. It really is. Looking at things at the moment, of course, things change very quickly in football, but I expect Game Week 37 to be the biggest double game week of the season, but also the easiest game week to get a good bench for that game week that will score you points as well, which is very, very important. So Game Week 37, that's the one to look out for a bench boost. If, of course, if you don't have your bench boost, then you still would use these strategies. Probably just don't play your bench boost in 37. Maybe you could consider free hitting or triple captaining in 37 instead. If you don't have a wild card or you don't have a free hit, then the rest of the season might be a little bit difficult. But if you've got at least one of a wild card and a free hit, you're probably going to be able to manage somehow, but it's really going to be very, very team specific. So there we go, guys. Those are the chip strategy options. Note it down and get it done. It's all going to be depending on how you are set up right now, though. Quick Game Week 26 Wildcard Draft. Here we go. So Flecken in goal, Gabriel, Pau and Dalot in defence. We've got Saka, Bowen, Hechan, Douglas Luiz in midfield. And up front, Højlund, Watkins and Solanke with a bench of Neto, Reguilon, Doughty and Son. So what this team gives you is it gives you 3 double Game Week players for Game Week 28 in Neto, Doughty and Solanke. So pretty nice there. You'd be set up nicely there. For Game Week 29, we have got a guarantee of 8 players. I believe maybe it's not 100% guaranteed, but it's like near enough guaranteed 8 players because one of Dalot and Doughty will play in Game Week 29 probably, but like 99% sure, right? So outside of that, it's, you know, you've got Powell there, you've got Bowen, you've got Douglas Luiz, you've got Watkins, you've got Reguilon, you've got Doughty, and you've got Son there as well, which I think is going to be a popular pick in the near future, Heung-min Son. So, yeah, there's your Game Week 26 wildcard draft. I think this serves you really, really nicely to cover you for the next few game weeks, as well as 28, as well as 29, and then after that, we move forward to maybe a free hit in Game Week 34. So, yeah, let's go get it. This is the wild card I would be going for if I was wildcarding right now. Now, if you feel like you're forced to free hit this week, maybe you've got just too many Chelsea, Spurs, Liverpool, Luton players in your team, and no amount of transfers and hits can resolve that situation, then possibly it is a week to free hit. Possibly. I mean, it's not ideal. But, you know, sometimes you are forced into these kind of things. So if you were to free hit this week, you want to build the dream team, the perfect team for Game Week 29. Maybe, you know, you're actually going to wildcard next week and you're just looking to build a really nice team for Game Week 26. These are the kind of players that I think will score very well this game week. So in goal, Martinez. In defense, Gabriel, Moreno, and Aït-Nouri. In midfield, we've got Saka, Neto and Hechan, so doubling up on the Wolves midfield, and Bruno Fernandes here as well against Fulham at home, which I think is pretty interesting. We could see Fernandes playing a bit further advanced if you think, you know, maybe we're going to see Højlund not playing as a central striker, so Rashford probably goes there because there's no Martial, and then Garnacho on the left, Bruno on the right wing potentially there. Maybe there's some other options. Maybe Anthony comes back into the team as well. And we see Bruno kind of playing that midfield role again. Up front, Højlund, Watkins, Tony. Like these three, particularly now Højlund is injured. I think these three forwards would be definitely the three I would go for Game Week 26. And a bench of Raya, Garnacho, Anderson, and Dalot. Again, Garnacho potentially playing on the left is going to be a little bit nicer for him. I think he'll have maybe a little bit more success on the left-hand side, be able to take a few more shots. He seems to be a little bit better from that position as well. So yeah, guys, in general, this is the kind of team I'd go for a free hit. You could potentially change Bruno Fernandes for someone else if you fancy playing Garnacho instead, or, you know, you want to go for Ødegaard, double up on the Arsenal attack, obviously sacrificing Raya on your bench. Yeah, this is the kind of team that, yeah, I quite like the look of for this game week. Not too many changes I would really think about making to it for a free hit in Game Week 26. And finally, the goalkeeper start order. Sat against Sheffield United is probably the best goalkeeper this week, followed by Martinez against Nottingham Forest. Raya, I would still give a real good chance to. I still think Arsenal have a good chance of a clean sheet, even in a tough game against the Newcastle attack. You know, weak defense, strong attack. That's what Newcastle are right now. Fleck and Onana, Edison, other goalkeepers you probably want to play. If you own Dubravka and Areola, that combo of goalkeepers, then it's not an ideal situation. I suppose neither of those goalkeepers expected to get too many points this week. And obviously, we've got a few goalkeepers at the bottom there who don't even have fixtures. So, yeah, just take what you can get this week, I'm afraid, guys. It's not going to be a great week for goalkeepers, generally speaking, unless you are fortunate enough to have a Sat, a Martinez, maybe Edison could possibly work out as well. So, there is your goalkeeper start order. So hopefully we covered most of the things you're interested in right now, guys. But if you do have any other questions about Game Week 26, do leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer as many of them as I can. Of course, we've got plenty of other videos on the channel this week, particularly the 100 Experts video. Really recommend watching that because that answers a lot of the other questions that you guys might have. So if you watch this video and the 100 Experts video, I think you'll pretty much be covered for Game Week 26 with all the answers you need. But guys, if you did enjoy this one, make sure you do drop a like. Do subscribe if you're new around here. And I will see you for tomorrow afternoon's deadline stream. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.